Hi, this is Lori, and this is my homework for Paul McWhorter's course, AI on the Edge. This will cover lessons 3 through 5, where we go through review of Python programming, and then lesson 4, Paul gives us a homework to do, and then lesson 5, we covered the Sunfounder AI Fusion hat plus board. And from lesson 5, Paul asked us to put together our AI Fusion platform and to construct our first circuit so that we're ready to go for lesson number 6. All right, I'll just show how my platform all turned out. And you can see I have the circuit that Paul asked us to set up laid out here on the breadboard. So first thing you might notice is that I added some standoffs in here to, so these brass ones I had from another kit, and I took some of these more nylon ones from the kit to get this camera up quite a bit higher so that I could see all the pins in here. And then I also added a little bit of space in here for the battery. So I like how that looks right now. We'll see whether I need to make any changes in the future. And the other thing I did was, maybe we'll zoom in a little bit here on that. You can kind of see that I brought power and ground down to the board here, doing it around, and then I've got all my stuff plugged in. I like having that more secure, so a little bit different than what Paul did. And then the other thing you'll see over here is I have this sitting here because I thought about hooking up one of these extension boards, and this cable here would plug into the 40-pin connector on your Raspberry Pi. And I was thinking, oh, I'll plug that into, we'll just kind of come back into here. I would plug that into the 40 pins here on the Fusion board. But this ribbon cable will not fit. So, there's possibility of getting. I was looking around. There's probably some right angle headers I might be able to put in here to kind of turn this out and then be able to connect that ribbon cable in. But for now, I'm gonna not do that, since Paul doesn't seem to, at least in this first circuit that we're going to use for a while, doesn't seem to be using any of the 40 pins. He's using pins that have been propagated to these other areas of the Fusion to connect devices in. And maybe we just don't need to worry about the rest of these pins over here, that we have plenty of pins to do what we want for this class. So I decided not to worry too much about trying to make that connection, but that would have been my first thought about how to set it up. All right, here's my homework for the Python refresher, where we're doing averaging of grades. And we'll start off by asking the user how many grades they want to enter. And we'll create an empty list called grades where we'll store that information. And in the next loop, we'll go through and ask them for each of the grades. And I'll use an F string to format the input request. So an F string is just a way to format strings in Python, and you just put everything you want to appear on the screen in between quotes here. And then if it's a variable that you want to substitute into the string, then you use curly braces like I do here with the I plus 1. So I'm asking the user, let's say when I is 0, it's gonna print to the shell, enter grade, and it's going to take I, which is currently 0, and add 1. So it'll say enter grade 1. And then it'll move to the next I and say enter grade 2. And then we'll append those grades into our grades list here. And let me slide this up just a little bit. There we go. And then we'll print that information back out to the user so they can verify that they entered the grades correctly. So we'll tell them what they've entered. And again, we'll use an F string to print that out to them. So using the same kind of logic here, but also notice I'm putting another variable into my string that's going to print out. I'm going to print out the value and the list grades at the current I position. So we'll see how that comes out. And then last, we'll calculate the average. So I just used the sum function that will sum a list, and then divided by the number of grades. I didn't use the bucket approach that Paul used. You don't have to add any special libraries to access the sum function, so I figured that was fair game to use and avoid having to worry about another variable to store the sum. And then I'll print that out, and again, using an F string, you can kind of start to see why it might be a valuable thing to do, because I can control the format of the number in lots of interesting ways. And I will put a link to a video I created about how to do formatting in Python when I did a deep dive into the various approaches, and I became a big fan of F strings during that. So here I'm going to take the value average, and I'm going to print it with one place after the decimal point as a float. So that's what that little language is that creates the output, and there's a lot to it. So it's very strong and can allow you to create output that you want in just the right way. Let's see. The other thing was I used the /n here in several places in the program to create a blank line before I started printing, just to make it visually a little easier to see the different parts of the output we're printing to the screen. And then I'll just point out that you can see I'm also using the Raspberry Pi Connect to connect into my Raspberry Pi. This is actually on my Mac that I'm connecting in and able to use my Raspberry Pi on my Mac. Works so far. It's been working really well for me. So it's a nice way, since I already have a screen capture tool that I'm very familiar with on my Mac, and it's easy to make nice videos on my Mac. So I don't have to worry about finding a way to do screen capture with the Raspberry Pi. So I like using this connect function to get access to the Pi here on my Mac. All right, so let's run this program. A lot of talking. Sorry for that. So how many grades? Let's say 3. And I'll enter our grades. Let's say 90. Then maybe we didn't do so well the next week. And then let's say we improved things a little bit. So we made a 93 the following. And you can see here's the output. And notice the lines that are skipped by the /n. And here's my average in the right format. And it continues to do that. Now I'll run it one more time to prove, and we'll just put in very different kinds of grades. Maybe this is not a very good student here, perhaps. And you can see the average is correct because I didn't have to worry about emptying any bucket by using the sum function the way I did to create my average. Well, that's my homework. I hope it was helpful to share, and thank you, Paul, for starting this course, and looking forward to many more challenging homeworks to do. And as always, I want to thank you for watching.